Oh, shit.
Welcome back to BSing Sports. Ryan here with Bill as most of the time. As you guys might be aware, we have some NFL playoff games going on, and that's why we have our man Lord and Savior Debo Samuel chilling in the background because, yes, the Eagles did lose last week, but it was made slightly less painful by the Dallas Cowboys also losing last week. Probably the only game that wasn't a blowout. However, I don't think that game was ever really as close as it looked. Speaking of that game, we're going to jump right into the topic of what happened on the last drive with the Dallas Cowboys. Why would you run a QB draw with 14 seconds left, and then you want to sit there and blame the referee for the reason that you lost?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gone over this play like 15 times. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I've rewatched it and watched the whole sequence. You've got 16 seconds on the clock when the ball is snapped. He drops back. There's great coverage on the sidelines for the 49ers, which, kudos to them. And they're only rushing 3 linebackers, drop 20 yards deep. So Dak Prescott obviously decides to take the run. His foolishness here was he never attempted to go to the sideline. He only ran directly up the field, and he didn't take 10 yards. He took, I think it was 19 he ended up running, and then slid, which left 8 seconds on the clock before his entire offensive line, receivers, and the referee, which is the most important part, who has to touch the football, could get down the field. So you're talking 8, 7, 6. He hands the ball to his center rather than the referee. 5, 4. Gets irritated when the referee runs into him in the back. The referee touches the ball, does a job, tries to get out of the way. 2, 1, doesn't snap the ball in time. This is entirely on Dak Prescott. When it originally happened and he ran the play, and if he had taken 15 yards, slid, immediately gave the ball to the referee, this is a genius idea. Nobody's expecting you to run. This is a great play by Dak Prescott. However, he foolishly hands the ball to his center, and that absolutely doomed the Cowboys. And I mean, again, when the Cowboys lost, I felt to myself, and I even tweeted it out, all is right in the world, right? Okay, so the Eagles lost, but the Cowboys lost, so it's okay. We're getting over it. But to your point, that game was never as close as it looked. The Niners dominated the Cowboys all but the last 10 minutes of the game. So kudos to the 49ers going in there as the underdog by, I think it was 6.5 points and handling business.
Yeah, and like I touched on last week, I'm not going to pat myself in the back too much. I did say that the 49ers were going to win that game. I believe I'm the only one that picked them to win that game.
You were.
With Jake, yeah. Something just seemed right about it. The 49ers have been playing well. Jimmy Garoppolo can manage a game just enough, to get a victory in an atmosphere like that. Kyle Shanahan, you knew, was going to come out with a great game plan, the way that they utilized Debo Samuel. And speaking of utilizing your receivers, one of the key reasons why Dallas lost was because CeeDee Lamb was completely irrelevant in pretty much the whole game. And, if you have a talent like CeeDee Lamb, you can't not force feed him the ball, essentially. If you see him in single coverage, one-on-one, you got to find ways to get him the ball. And while, yes, Cowboys fans may ultimately be disappointed at the last play, ultimately that is not what cost the Cowboys this game. The Cowboys had a very talented roster, and half of which did not really show up. Yes, Michael Parsons got hurt early in the game, may have affected, a little bit of the outcome. However, there were other key pieces that just were not involved in the game too much. Zeke had 12 carries for 29 yards, and the news came out that he was playing on a torn PCL in his knee since week 4, which could explain some of it. However, he said all these things, I'm feeling healthy coming down the stretch, and even in the last few weeks, the regular season, it just did not show. So I'm curious to see what the status of Zeke and Pollard look like, going into next season. However, like I said, my take on that game is the Cowboys terribly misutilized their weapons. And if I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm very concerned because this is the most talented roster the Cowboys have had in years. And they still got bounced in the first round on a home game.
So here's the thing, right? I reached out to a buddy of mine who is a Cowboys fan. And I asked him flat out, how do you feel about the roster? Because, you're losing Kellen Moore. More than likely, you're losing Kellen Moore, your offensive coordinator this season.
They might lose Quinn, too.
That's what I was just about to say. They're probably going to lose Dan Quinn. There's a lot of head coaching jobs available right now. How do you feel about the team moving forward? And he said, if we didn't win this year, we're not going to in the next couple. That's how Cowboys fans, oh, look at them Cowboys, this is our year. That's how Cowboys fans are looking at this scenario right now. It was a win now situation in Dallas, and they didn't win now.
So looking at this whole situation, looking at Mike McCarthy being the head coach, you now look at his time in Green Bay, and people have been slandering Aaron Rodgers for years on his inability to win more than one Super Bowl. You look at what Mike McCarthy just did with this team in Dallas and how talented that roster was, probably far superior than any roster he had in Green Bay, and they got bounced in the first round. Now you look at that situation, like, is Rodgers really the problem? Granted, he hasn't gotten to a Super Bowl with Matt LaFleur yet either, but they've looked a hell of a lot better than they have with Mike McCarthy at the helm.
That's correct, yeah.
So as an Eagles fan, I hope to God that Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn take jobs elsewhere and they have a hard time promoting from within. However, I don't see any scenario where Mike McCarthy is the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year. Given the talent that's on that roster and what just unfolded in the first round of the playoffs, I can't see it.
That's a really bold statement considering they haven't fired him yet. You're talking 6 days removed from the playoff game in which they lost, which again, they were well equipped to go ahead head-to-head with the Niners and beat the Niners.
I think truly they're waiting to see what happens with Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. I think they're probably trying to talk to one, more specifically more than Quinn, to try and retain them. Be like, hey, no, stay here, and we will can McCarthy. You can take his spot. Like I said, I think the more likely of the two is Kellen Moore because Dan Quinn doesn't exactly have the most successful track record as a head coach. But I think that's kind of what's taken so long as they're looking, maybe more so internal than external for candidates first.
I actually do agree with that statement there because if you remember when Jason Garrett got the head coaching job, it was after they had fired Wade Phillips.
Yeah, because if they fire Mike McCarthy, you'll see something within 20 minutes to the next day of Kellen Moore's the head coach or Dan Quinn's the head coach. They're waiting for the quick turnaround. I think there's just some negotiations going on. They're letting Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn do their due diligence, elsewhere, getting their interviews in, and then they're probably going from there. Yeah,
I actually agree with that side of it. Like I said, the only thing that's a little suspicious there is that they haven't fired him after 7 days. We got to discuss how, for the most part, and there's a lot of questioning about having the extra wild card slot in the NFL is a good or a bad idea. There were a lot of not competitive games in the first round of the wild card weekend for the NFL. You're talking the Buccaneers. I don't care about
throttled the Eagles.
I don't care about the 15 points the Eagles put up in garbage time. That was a 31-0 game, and that's honestly how it should have been on the scoreboard after it ended. The Eagles did not show up. We'll touch more on the Eagles in another podcast. We got a lot of stuff to talk about them. This is more about the playoffs here today.
Well, let's just recap that game. What was your biggest concern about the Eagles?
Jalen Hurts. His inability to push the ball down the field. He overthrew Dallas Goedert several times. He overthrew Kes Watkins. He missed an open Kes Watkins for a touchdown. Didn't see him.
He threw into double coverage several times because the Buccaneers had double coverage on Dallas Goedert several times, and he tried to force the ball. Meanwhile, the corner, Jamil Dean on Devontae Smith, was playing 10 yards off the guy.
And the announcers, Troy Aikman, a guy who has revered the Eagles for years and years and years, absolutely livid on the show, talking about how if this was him and Mike and I didn't really appreciate the comment, but he's 100% correct. If it were he and Mike Irvin and the guys were playing 10 yards off and that's his best wide receiver, he's throwing him 9-yard routes every single play.
I've grown to not like Troy Aikman because I'm an Eagle fan. I'm not going to like Troy Aikman. I respect Troy Aikman and his ability to call a game because if you listen to the way that he announces Cowboys games, he announces it the same way.
Yes. I couldn't help it over here.
That one, he's terrible. And he did the same thing to Jalen Hurts, and he even came out and made the statement after the game and said, look, I hate comparing, back to when I played because nobody cares. You're right. We don't. However, what you said following in terms of force feeding Michael Irvin the ball when the guy's playing 10 yards off him is absolutely correct.
Absolutely
when you have a receiver like Devontae Smith who can run routes like Devontae Smith, you need to find ways to get him the ball. It's an easy 6 to 7 yards every single play.
And you're talking 6 to 7 yards when your offense was really, really struggling to move the football.
Force them to stop you. They're giving you easy plays.
You're talking the Eagles had, I think it was -4 yards going into the second quarter. This This is a team that led the league in rushing for the last 14 weeks of the season, and they literally could get nothing going, and you still didn't have a game plan for button hooks and quick slants on Devontae Smith, and it's mind-boggling that, look, you got to put some of the blame on Nick Sirianni. I'm not taking it solely off of Nick Sirianni. However, he called some plays where wide receivers were open and Jalen Hurts just did not see them, did not read them, and or over or under threw them. My brother-in-law I was watching the game with flat out said he's like the polar opposite of Donovan McNabb. McNabb was always hitting people in the feet. He's overthrown them by 3 yards in this game.
I mean, we all seen the breakdown of the play where Quez Watkins was open in the middle of the field on a slant, and Jalen Hurts just decided not to set himself and throw the ball downfield. He's one look, and then he's off target. The protection was great. I don't think there were too many scenarios in the game where the protection was immediately a factor in passing plays, but I think in terms of biggest problem with the game, I would agree it was Jalen Hurts, and then a very second close was the Eagles' pass rush.
Non-existent.
I think they thought the game was in Philadelphia.
Having said that, they got 3 3-and-outs in a row to end the second half, and on all 3 of them on third down, they did sack Tom Brady. And then for whatever reason, John Gannon stopped that game plan.
I mean, John Gannon's pass rush has been inconsistent all year. It's why the Eagles have had one of their lowest sack totals in forever. Josh Sweat showed some serious regression from the offseason when we signed him to that big deal. It's going to make me super, elated to see John Gannon gone. Actually, I would be surprised if anybody,
Yeah, Tim, this is just like the plays that we're talking about. Jalen Hurts missed a lot.
That play's got to be a touchdown. I don't care where the safety was at the time. The corner slipped, and it took Jalen Hurts way too long to see that.
As soon as the corner slips, the ball needs to be out.
Yeah, but John Gannon. His defensive schemes were not conducive to the skills that the Eagles pass rushers have. So I would not hate to see him go. However, to his credit, the safeties and Darius Slay, the secondary seemed to have a very good bounce back year. Vontae Maddox had a good year. Darius Slay had a good year. Steven Nelson had a good second half of the year. And then the 3 safety rotation, once they finally figured that out with Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, and Rodney McLeod, 2 of which are free agents. They played okay, but in that game, the whole thing was just abysmal.
I'm gonna have to do research on this. That's not.
I did see that actually.
I heard that he was a candidate. I didn't hear he was the front runner.
I heard he's one of the front running candidates. I think they've kind of given up on Flores from what it sounds like. So I think John Gannon's kind of stepped up into the front running candidate for the Texans job, which is interesting.
We'll go. I mean, hopefully we have time before all these coaches are signed and we can discuss where we think guys are going. Because Doug Peterson originally was really heavily tied to the Giants. And I read today that he's almost 100% guaranteed to be the Bears' next head coach. But we can go into
going to be interesting because Nick Foles is still over there, isn't he?
Nick Foles is still over there. And we know that when it comes to running quarterbacks, Doug Peterson doesn't exactly rely on them super heavily. So that number 1 or the first round draft pick they had last year in Justin Fields may be on the block if Doug Peterson gets the job.
No, I think Doug Peterson could turn Fields around into a solid player. Honestly, I do.
I'm surprised he's not more linked to Jacksonville.
I think if out of all the coaching positions open right now, Jacksonville would be my favorite.
Yeah, they have a pretty decent defense. They have weapons on offense. They have 2 good running backs.
Capital. They have salary cap. They have young positional players. They have
the first overall pick in last year's draft in Trevor Lawrence, who I don't believe to be a bust. I just 100% don't feel like Urban Meyer gave him.
No, Urban Meyer totally screwed him up. And DJ Chark is best receiver going out in week 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So I am very surprised that Doug Peterson's not more linked to Jacksonville.
Speaking of that last comment that Timothy Hawkins made, I don't think Leftwich leaves before Todd Bowles does. I think Bowles gets another job before Leftwich does.
Yeah, on all of the media. So while we're watching games, they're all talking about how Bowles. It's Leftwich who's getting the interviews. Leftwich is this. Bowles is helping Leftwich do that. The reality is that nobody's undermining what Todd Bowles has done with the defense there in Tampa. I mean, they're on their way to, we'll go into our predictions, but they are obviously on a run where they could go to their second straight Super Bowl, and the defense is a big part of that. Yes, Tom Brady is on the team, TB12, good for him, but he's playing with a whole bunch of hurt receivers and missing receivers and hurt weapons, and and they're winning games because their defense is putting up 0s and 15s in the last 4 minutes of games. Like the defense is good there.
Fournette's back this weekend too, so.
Not to mention that all 4 of their starting corners in Tampa have been hurt, and they're still very competitive on the defensive side of the football.
That pass rush is something else, man. They're lethal.
Yeah.
But you can cover up secondary woes with a good pass rush. You really can.
Right. Yes, you can. The Eagles did it the year they won the Super Bowl. They did it.
They did it for quite some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving off of that Eagles game, let's recap some. Let's recap the last NFC game while we're sticking to the.
The Arizona Cardinals visit the I almost said that too. Wow.
Rams.
Los Angeles Rams.
4th time's the charm.
For those of you keeping track, I look tired because I am tired.
Hey, do you guys remember like when I first moved to South Carolina and I looked beat all the time? That's what Bill looks like right now.
Yes.
Switch. He puts the words right out of my mouth. Post that comment up here, please. He beat me to it.
I wanted to say it.
No, he's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. He's hot garbage. I mean, Kyler Murray is absolutely awful as an NFL quarterback. Yeah, he might be a great fantasy asset because he can run, but let's see what he did without DeAndre Hopkins, and it's not diddly squat. He can't do a dang thing without any, decent receiver on his team. He can't even make decent receivers look good on his team because I feel like Christian Kirk, kind of falls into that category of if his quarterback made him look good, he would be good. That game was atrocious. The pick 6 was awful. Yeah, just beat me to it.
Thank you, John.
And the Rams this was another example of the Rams controlled the game all the way throughout. Yeah, Cooper Kupp didn't do anything in the first half because he didn't have to.
Let's since you hammered down on Kyler Murray, let me talk up Matt Stafford. All the talk coming out of Detroit was how he had never won a playoff game with Detroit. It was a huge deal. He'd been there forever. They had some decent teams. That's a stretch in Detroit, and he had never won a playoff game there. It's super important to note that Matt Stafford had a 148.6 passer rating against the Arizona Cardinals this past weekend.
And their defense was no joke.
Yeah, and the Arizona defense is no joke. So good for Matt Stafford, good for the Rams going out and getting Matt Stafford and putting him in a position where he's going to be successful. Again, we'll get into our predictions, but I predict more big things out of Matt Stafford, and I stand by that. Yeah,
so everybody, when they saw that trade, they were like, wow, they overpaid for Matt Stafford. But nobody actually broke down the state of the Detroit Lions and the state of the, Los Angeles Rams.
That is a true stat.
Matt Stafford was 33 years old and was on a team, we knew he had all the talent in the world, great arm, he was a great quarterback, and he just played on a bad team. Whereas if he had a great team around him, he would be successful. And then if you, made it vice versa, Jared Goff was just not a quarterback that was going to cut it. The Rams are in win now mode. They need a win now quarterback. The Lions are in the middle of a rebuild, and seriously, what is 2 first-round picks and getting all of Jared Goff's money off of your cap in exchange for, a guy that can potentially take you to the promised land? Matt Stafford absolutely has the arm talent to take the Rams as deep into the playoffs as he desires. So that trade, I said it from the get-go, was very good for both teams. It was the prime example of like the perfect trade because both teams got exactly what they needed.
Yeah, and I concur. The reason. So a lot of people were not a lot of people, but there was a lot of reports out that, having the 7th wild card spot was not going to make competitive games. And for the most part, the first couple of games, I know I'm like messing with my camera here. I apologize. First couple of games proved that. But then you turn around and you have a game like the Cardinals and Rams that the Cardinals were definitely getting in. They were the 5 seed. They were definitely getting in. And the Rams absolutely made them look silly. And it was the same thing in the AFC. The Bills trounced all over the New England Patriots. That also was never a game at any point in time. Buffalo came in with a game plan and they did whatever they wanted on top of that game plan. And Bill Belichick's led Patriots didn't stand a chance.
Who was it that said Bill Belichick has struggled to stop teams' best weapons in the recent weeks? That was
you. I called the Bills to win, but not by 30 points.
No, I called the Bills to win too. I didn't see it going like that. But yeah, something had been off about Bill Belichick and his defense the last few weeks. We'll just get into the game recap. There is no recap. Josh Allen did whatever he felt like doing. Josh Allen was probably sitting in the Patriots defensive huddles going, I know what we're doing.
He must have been. That's how it looked. Every single play, it was a positive. The Patriots sacked Josh Allen one time, and outside of that, the Bills had 0 negative plays the entire game. 0 negative plays.
I'm going to ask you a hot take question. How hot is Bill Belichick's seat as coach?
All right, so I am going to answer this, but the answer is going to surprise you. I don't think it's that hot. Now, I'm going to ask you this question before you give me your rebuttal, and you can make it a two-parter. Sorry, I'm plugging my laptop in because I just noticed it's dying. You can answer me on a two-part question here. I read that because Bill Belichick does not want to be in shootouts with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Josh Allen, that Mac Jones may be on the trading block. Fire away with that one.
I've heard that news too, and I think that would surprise me a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they did expend a first-round pick, and Mac Jones really wasn't the issue. He had his growing pains. We understand that he doesn't have the ceiling of a Trey Lance or Justin Fields. However, he showed some solid potential. However, I disagree with both you and John about Bill Belichick's seat not being hot, because there was a comment made from Robert Kraft last year after the Patriots, kind of fell on their face first year without TB12, and it was, you better win a Super Bowl without Tom Brady. Not even winning a playoff game without Tom Brady right now. So
I think he gets another year, and that's why.
That's what I'm not saying he's going to be fired this offseason, but
if we land on the same conversation in 12 months, I will be 100% in the opposite corner. If he go with Mac Jones, they go 10-7 again, they make the playoffs, and they're a one and done. I believe that he's out.
If they are bounced from the first round next year, Bill Belichick will not be the coach after that. No, you can't justify it based on the fact that he already has a losing record without Tom Brady. And if he can't even get out of the first round of the playoffs without the guy, then it'd be time to move on. And from that fact, I don't even think you could retain him in his GM role either. Not that he's a bad GM, but firing somebody from one responsibility and retaining him for another might be a little sour. So, if he continues to fail to get out of the first round without Tom Brady, he's bounced.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, John is a Patriots fan. So he's kind of sort of giving us like inside information that we don't really have right now.
Yeah, just a little bit more of a closer opinion to the situation, just because he follows them a little bit more.
Yeah. We're missing 2 games. What are we missing?
2 AFC games. Titans in play, so the Chiefs and the Steelers. That there's not much to recap on that one. That
another blowout.
They did not give Big Ben much of a fair going away. They kind of crushed that, ruined that, destroyed that.
Yeah, I said it was going to be a blowout. You said
I thought it was going to be a trap game. I thought the Steelers were going to find some way to make it close. That was not the case, obviously. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense came out and did what the Chiefs offense came out to do. Oh, yeah, the really boring game on Saturday.
The only other close game.
Yeah, actually, that was the game we all talked about this. That was the game I was least interested to watch.
Yeah, and it ended up being the game.
Joe Burrow was fantastic, though.
Absolutely. And again, we're going to go into our predictions, and I want to talk about Joe Burrow a little bit more. But the Bengals did exactly what I think they wanted to do. They kept they scored first, and they never felt the need to press after that.
Mixon didn't have a great game, 17 carries for 48 yards, but didn't have to.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't press. There were a lot of short routes for Joe Burrow to hit. They built his confidence up early. The Bengals did exactly what they wanted to do going into that game. The first postseason win for the Bengals since text messaging started, just so everybody knows.
And that's to me, Zach Taylor is probably the front runner for Coach of the Year. Think about how quickly that franchise turned around in even just a year. Yeah, Joe Burrow got hurt at the end of last year, like toward the middle-ish, endish of last year. However, that they were not a good team last year anyway. And now they're playing in the divisional round of the playoffs. They had a home game in the playoffs. They went from being, last place in the division to winning it and, playing in the second round of the playoffs. To me, that screams volumes about what they believe in Zach Taylor and how the players have rallied around him. So I think Zach Taylor, quite frankly, is going to be the Coach of the Year.
I think he's definitely in the running. We can't put down what I always say his name wrong, the guy from Oakland.
Oh yeah, the interim head coach.
Yeah, I can't.
Did you
I
hear
say
that they might not retain him as head coach after kind of what he did? Given all the situation, the drama
yeah,
surrounding that team.
which is really surprising. Like he comes in, he takes over after Gruden and that whole debacle. They lose 2 straight games after that, but then they turn around and they put together a really good second half of the season. They make the playoffs. They play a good game in the playoffs. I think their biggest problem is that Derek Carr probably shouldn't be the quarterback there anymore.
I heard an interesting rumor. It's not a rumor. I saw an interesting scenario on the internet where Carson Wentz and the Colts are likely headed for Splitsville. They seem very unhappy. They being the Colts, and Frank Reich was not very happy. Although Wentz didn't really have a terrible season, he just had a really bad last 2 games of the year in a must-win situation. I saw a scenario unfolding where Derek Carr goes to the Colts.
So I want to be like, yeah, a change of scenery would be great for Derek Carr, and a change of scenery would be great for Carson Wentz.
To me, I feel like you're about to say the same thing I would. Go ahead.
It's like a lateral move. What is the difference between Carson Wentz and Derek Carr at this point? And there's nothing. I know I've been super high on Carson Wentz last week. If you guys were listening, I ripped him a new one, and I'm standing pat on that. You guys were in the playoffs, and you played like shit, and now your team's not in the playoffs. Cut and dry.
There's no difference between Derek Carr and Carson Wentz. That's not an impactful move. That's not anything that's going to take you any closer to the playoffs or getting deep into the playoffs. Colts would be better off riding out Carson Wentz, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention that they're on the hook for his entire salary. The Eagles didn't need any of that.
Well, they passed this year, yeah.
Well, yeah, but so I mean, the Colts have a decision to make, and again, as you pointed out, for the first 16 or 15 games of the season, Carson Wentz didn't play poorly. So
yeah, I think half his interceptions were in one game.
They were in that Ravens game where the Ravens came back. But I think you ride Carson Wentz if you're the Colts in this situation.
Yeah, and man, there's so much that happened. It's been swirling around, been happening and whatnot. There's so much to cover. But yeah, that's just a scenario I can't see unfolding because, like you said, it's a lateral move. There's no difference. Derek Carr is a solid NFL quarterback. Derek Carr is not that kind of impactful NFL quarterback that's going to make a difference, especially because he's going to be on the wrong side of 30 next year.
Correct. I also saw another report, and it wasn't by an Eagles beat writer, which I thought was pretty cool. It was just by an NFL writer who believes that the Eagles are kind of sort of hardcore all in on Russell Wilson, and that it might only cost 2 first-round picks this year and 1 next year. And I see you shaking your head. And before you started shaking your head, I had already had an opinion on it. And I don't want them to do that at all. Not that I don't think Russell Wilson can still be an impactful player, because I believe he can. He was on a mediocre squad this year. He's coming back from an injury. And for the last 6 games of the season, he had a top 5 passer rating in the NFL. Russell Wilson can still sling the ball. But he just isn't the move that I think the Eagles should give up draft picks for. Your defense is going to be really thin after this season. You need to use those draft picks on defense.
Russell Wilson is good when Russell Wilson wants to be good. I think part of him has been checked out since he married Sierra and he started doing all those weird commercials and like brand posings and whatnot. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, I do.
He just kind of became more of like a public icon rather than a football player. Before all that stuff happened, let Russ eat, blah, blah, blah. I think he checked out from football when Seattle just kind of figured, for the last 10 years, they weren't going to let Russ throw the ball 40 times a game like they should have.
It makes me wonder that if in a new scenario in a young team like the Eagles would reignite him. I mean, it's cause for conversation. I just don't want the Eagles to go do that. If you're going to –
The second part to that is, okay, put Russell Wilson on the team that just lost in the playoffs. Do they get any further than they just did? No.
No, they still run that game. No, if they run into the Bucs,
they give up 3 first-round picks for a guy that's not going to get us any further than what we had.
Let's ask this question: If Russell Wilson is on the team and they go better than 9-7, they have a possibility of beating the Cowboys in one of those games. They take the division, they get a home game. Does that game turn out any different? And the answer is it could. That's the point. So but everything is it could. They could have beat the Bucs with Russell Wilson. We don't know.
I mean, they could have lost a game that the Eagles won with Russell Wilson. So I mean, I'm with you there. So it's all here and there. I know I'm arguing both sides here, which is weird of me. I usually just take a side and run with it. But
He does have a no trade clause, Tim. So let me pull this up. He does have a no trade clause, and he said he's only going to waive it for certain teams. The Eagles were not on the original list, but it doesn't mean that he wouldn't.
The Bears were, and if they get Doug Peterson, I think that'd be an interesting fit.
I also think that would be an interesting fit. But it doesn't mean he wouldn't waive it to come to Philly.
Here's a wild scenario. So and we'll get into this part later. Rodgers leaves Green Bay, leaves the division wide open because Tay's going to leave with him. Devontae Adams will probably be out the door as well. Division's wide open. Kirk Cousins really ain't it in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook plays about 14 games a year.
13.
Yeah, about 13 games a year. Russell Wilson goes to Chicago. They ship Fields to Seattle, who's not competing in that division as long as Matt Stafford's on LA and the Cardinals find a way to win games. And San Fran, does San Fran things. They find ways to win, especially with Trey Lance about to take the helm. Seattle takes a good hard look at their team and starts a rebuild. They go and get Justin Fields, a couple first-round picks from the Bears, send Russell Wilson over to the Bears with Doug Peterson. Maybe you get Allen Robinson to stay. Maybe
yes.
David
if Russell Wilson's on that team with Doug Peterson as the head coach, a guy who won a Super Bowl 4 years ago, yes, Allen Robinson stays. Not to mention that Allen Robinson was on the field the following year when Doug Peterson's Eagles beat the Bears. Let's not forget that either.
There's a lot of what if scenarios, and a lot of them are very far stretched. That probably won't happen.
We will go into after the season. I'm looking forward to that show. It's going to be a long show. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, obviously, that'll be like a 2-hour BSing sports special. But so let's move on to predictions for this upcoming week and whatnot, because this might take some time too. I have quite a few hot takes.
All right, so 4:30 p.m. Saturday afternoon. The 10-7 Bengals, again coming off their first postseason win since 1993, if I'm not mistaken, are visiting the number 1 seed, 12-5 Tennessee Titans, with King Henry coming back off the IR. You first.
It's going to be a Wild Wild West shootout. I got 34-31 Bengals with the victory.
No, I should have gone first.
Yeah, I got the Bengals taking the upset here for no particular reason other than I'm unsure what Derrick Henry is going to do at the same time. Cincinnati's run defense is not very good, so I imagine Derrick Henry. It's just my biggest question is volume. What is Derrick Henry going to get for volume? Now, I imagine he could get his regular volume just due to the fact that it sounded like he could have played Week 18 if the Titans really needed him to. However, based on opponent and schedule and the fact that they were playing for a first-round bye, which would give him an extra week of rest, did sound like he wasn't going to. So I could imagine him getting his regular volume again. However, the Bengals are boom or bust, and Joe Burrow coming off, one of his best games of the year in a playoff game, not to mention, doesn't seem very rattled by the big stage, won a national championship against Alabama. So go ahead and give me the Bengals in an upset here. 34-31. I see both teams putting up a lot of points here.
Yeah, for everything you just said, we don't know what Derrick Henry's going to do. We know that a few years ago, Ryan Tannehill could not lead when he had to throw the ball. He couldn't lead the Titans to a win in the playoffs
against the Chiefs.
And I'm sticking with this. However, I've got a 37-34 victory here for the Bengals. Again, for everything that you already said, which makes me wish I had kind of gone first, and not giving you the reins there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to rule it. I'm not saying there's no way the Titans win this game. It is a home game for them, and they do get King Henry back. However, so my gut's telling me that the Bengals are going to – I'm actually excited to watch this game. I was very unthrilled and unexcited for the Bengals game last week. It's the exact opposite this week. I think this is probably going to be one of the better games of the playoffs.
Yeah, just so you guys know, when Ryan says we were unthrilled by the Bengals game, we were literally playing Call of Duty while the Bengals game was on.
Yeah, I had it on my laptop. I was just kind of keeping an eye on it just so I knew what to talk about during the show. But, yeah, it was so bad. It was just boring to watch, you know what? We didn't bring up something huge in that Bengals game. The penalties and how many bullet holes the Raiders have in their feet. Yeah, it was awful.
Well, more specifically, the play that shouldn't have been the blown whistle because they thought Joe Burrow ran out of bounds, and then it was a touchdown.
It wasn't even close. He was inbounds by like half a foot.
The NFL has benched the referee crew from the entire team, from the entire game for the rest of the postseason because of that. And if there's a chance that somebody's losing their job as an NFL referee because of that.
Truthfully, I don't think it had any sort of effect on the play. Yeah, you could see the players kind of give up as the ball was about 3 feet from Tyler Boyd, as he was standing about 5 feet wide open in the end zone. So it made no difference anyway. But that play wasn't close. I don't know what the refs saw. Even in live even in real time, you could see that Burrow was about 8 inches from the sideline. I've seen way closer plays not get blown dead than that one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But yeah, so I've got the Bengals 37-34 over the Titans. King Henry, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. Tannehill can't win a shootout. Joe Burrow and that offense is primed for a shootout in that scenario. So unfortunately for the 1 seed Titans, I think they're going home here.
And to play devil's advocate, the Titans have dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the year. Julio Jones has played less than he, has missed more games than he's played. A.J. Brown missed some time this year. King Henry missed some time, and yet they're still the number 1 seed. So my hat off to Mike Vrabel. He has that team ready to go every week. However, I think this is going to be unstoppable force meets an immovable object, and Bengals go ahead and take this one out.
All right, the 8:15 game, Saturday night, and these two teams have had some great playoff matches. The Niners have always had great playoff matches. I said it last week about them and the Cowboys. Now they go up to Lambeau and they play Green Bay, who they always play hard. I don't care who the quarterbacks are. I don't care what the team records are. For some reason, the 49ers and the Packers always play each other hard. In week 6, the Niners, when they were on a 4-game losing streak, came within a missed field goal of beating the Packers in Lambeau earlier this season, and that's back when Green Bay was really on a roll. So my pick here is that the home team gets the win. Lambeau, it's supposed to be cold, it's supposed to be snowy, going to be miserable. I believe the Packers probably win by 10 points here. Nothing against Shanahan and his offense, nothing against Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't think they're going to go to Lambeau and compete. I've got a 27-20, 27-17 type game in favor of the Packers.
I see it being a lot closer than you do. I see potential upset, here. Green Bay's run defense is suspect. Green Bay's run defense has been suspect. And one thing that you notice about the 49ers is they like to utilize the run game, not with just Elijah Mitchell, but they find the way to get the ball into my man Deebo Samuel's hands.
They do.
He's such a dynamic weapon. However, on the flip side to that, if they play one-on-one coverage with the Packers' best receiver, unlike Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers is not going to miss that. Devontae Adams would be targeted 25 times a game if that were the case.
Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be rushing with 14 seconds left in the game,
or really at all. See last year's NFC Championship game where he was 9 yards from the end zone and decided to throw the ball. I don't know about this one. My gut tells me upset, but I just think the Packers are hard to beat in Lambeau. So I'm going to say 20-17 Packers, but something reeks of an upset here. If the 49ers get out to an early lead, I could see it.
Yeah, I'm still going Packers. Nothing in me is saying Niners could upset them. For me, it's Packers hands down, no question. Sunday game,
60-65% Packers here.
Sunday game starting at 3 p.m. We have the 12-5 Los Angeles Rams. I got it right that time. Are visiting the 13-4, just coming off of absolutely annihilating the Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This is going to be so good. Oh, man.
I'm riding Matt Stafford here. The Buccaneers are dealing with a lot of injuries on offense and defense. They're not super healthy right now. I know that the Eagles put up 0 fight, but that is a completely different game or team rather than the Rams are. The Rams are healthy. The Rams have Cam Akers, who didn't play most of the season, put up, I think it was 19 rushes for 94 yards, not to mention he caught the ball 4 times for 56 yards. I'm taking the Rams here in an upset in Tampa, and I'm taking them in a very close game. I'm talking walk-off field goal, 32-30, 32-31, some around that range. Very close. Give me the Rams.
We're opening up a poll on this one because I'm just reading the comments, and it seems very, very split. And I guarantee the rest of the people not watching this show would feel the same way. Oh man.
Yeah, see, I looked at this one for almost an hour earlier while I was at work, supposed to be working. Sorry, boss. And I just couldn't come up with a definitive answer. And while I'm sitting here looking at the screen, all the things I just said, the Buccaneers are not healthy, and I know they've got TB12.
Yeah, man.
I'm going Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's going to get a second playoff win.
It's hard to bet against. Now, if the injuries that the Buccaneers sustained on the offensive line with Ryan Jensen and Tristan Wirfs were long withstanding, I would say Rams because Aaron Donald would have his way. However, that offensive line, they bounce back. They're healthy. Fournette's coming back. Rams' run defense has been suspect all year. I'm going to agree with you. I say Rams. That's like 51% Rams. You could change my mind tomorrow.
Thank you, Frankie.
Yeah, thank you. Just by spelling out, Bucks, but I think Rams. Jalen Ramsey, is like Tim just pointed out, Jalen Ramsey, although he doesn't shadow as much as people think he does, he is going to have his way with Mike Evans. That's the exact type of receivers that he really likes to, go up against. He's a physical cornerback, so he tends to do very well against the bigger physical receivers. See DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go ahead and say Rams. I think 31-28.
Close game. I love it.
I think it's going to be a lot like that Rams-Chiefs game from a few years ago where there's some defensive plays made. However, the score is just, absurd. In the 50s. You can't predict 54-51, but I think it's going to be both teams might score in the 30s.
Actually, I have a comment on the comeback player of the year. Frankie, I'm going to pull your comment up here because I want to talk about it. If you had asked me 8 weeks ago, hands down, it would have been Dak Prescott. As of right here where I sit right now, it is Joe Burrow, no questions asked.
Yeah, actually, my opinion's starting to flip on that too. I still think it's Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott did not win a playoff game. Joe Burrow did. Hands down. Done.
No, the Bengals won a playoff game, and the Cowboys didn't.
I understand. We've discussed it many times how one position does not create the whole illusion that the quarterback runs everything on both sides of the football. However, Joe Burrow has a win in the column. The Bengals have a win in the column, and the Cowboys do not. So for me,
is that more on Zach Taylor or Mike McCarthy?
100% Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, so that has more to do with coaching than actual quarterback play. In terms of comeback player of the year, Dak Prescott's injury was far more gruesome to come back from than Joe Burrow's. Yes, Joe Burrow tearing his ACL and his MCL, is devastating. However, with the sports science that we have, he was able to make a quick enough recovery that he could jump right back in week one and not miss any time. Whereas Dak Prescott literally snapped his leg in half. So, and like I said last year, if we're going back to last year, the Bengals were already a bad team, and the Cowboys would have won the division last year if they had Dak all year. So Dak, to me, at the time of their injuries, was much more of an impactful player than Joe Burrow was.
All right, fair enough. Last game on the docket, we have the 11-6 Buffalo Bills coming off of that wonderful game against the Bill Belichick-led Patriots, visiting Big Red and the Chiefs, Andy Reid and the Chiefs at 12-5. This is a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game.
The Bills are either going to win this game 47-41 or lose this game by 20 points.
And I feel the exact same way. It's going to be a high-scoring game for one team.
I could see it being a shootout if the Bills win. However, if the Bills lose, I could see them getting blown out by 20. They're Mike Tyson. It's either they're knocking people out or get knocked out.
So my prediction for this here game is I am taking the Buffalo Bills. I know what the Chiefs did against the Steelers last week. I know what the Chiefs did against the Steelers, and I know what they've done the last 12 weeks of the season. I've realized that the Chiefs are on a tear. But just like you said about the first game we discussed, it's like an immovable object.
Yeah, unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
And for me, it's in Buffalo's favor. I know that they are in Kansas City, and I totally get that. But last year, Kansas City came into Buffalo and won. It's the Bills for me. I've got the Bills winning. And contrary to what I just said, when I wrote all my stuff down earlier, I had the Bills winning in a 37-34 shootout with the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm going to say Chiefs by 10. Last 9 games, Chiefs are 8-1. And the Bills have looked suspect all year. This is a team where you expect them to win, and they go out and lose to the Steelers at home on opening day. You expect a close game with the Patriots, and they go ahead and blow them out by 30 points, which sounds a lot closer than the game actually was. too much inconsistency in Buffalo. I think, they'll really feel the loss of Tre'Davious White this week when Tyreek Hill runs free in their secondary and Micah Hyde's there to chase him. And while he's doing that, Travis Kelce will be open somewhere in the flat. The scheming, the weapons, I think it'll be a little bit too much. I think the Chiefs win, just based on scheme and the players that they have in place, 37-27, something like that.
Okay. We disagree.
Yeah, no, I don't get me wrong. I mean, any of these teams can win.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they're where they are.
However, the game I'm most split on is the Rams-Bucks. Tomorrow I'm probably going to wake up and change my mind. If I do, I'll post it on Facebook. But, this is not one of those ones where, like, you take a little bit of convincing to change my mind. I think the Chiefs, right now, last 9 weeks of football, they're just the better team. They started out really slow as well. Talking about inconsistencies, they started out 5-4. This team has found their stride. Then they showed it last week.
Okay. All right. I like it. So we just about done here. We gotta.
Let's talk Flyers for real fast. 2 10-game losing streaks before the 40-game mark. Yep. We'll probably dive a little bit more into that. Frank said he wanted to talk Flyers soon, so we'll go ahead and definitely plan something out with that. But yeah, they're a headache right now. They're not something that I really want to talk about, and they're not something that we just had a great episode of football, so I'm not going to spend any time talking about.
Farabee made it on the injured list today.
Hayes went back on. Farabee's on. Ellis is on.
This is a team that we talked about it before the season started, right after the Ellis trade, and how we were really excited. And I had even predicted them to go pretty far in the playoffs. I don't want to say it again because I make myself.
Ellis played 4 games. Farabee's missed time. Hayes has missed time. Couturier's missed time. All the offseason acquisitions, I talk about finally they have a full offseason to gel, and none of them play any games because they're all hurt.
Yeah,
Giroux has got to waive that no trade clause and go to a team like Colorado or somebody that's going to contend for a cup this year.
He deserves
Lord have mercy.
Yeah,
get out of here.
I mean, don't take it wrong, G. We love you. We've spoken many times about how much we love you. But actually, Timmy, yes, thank you for giving me happier information.
They were supposed to meet. I didn't hear anything from it.
They were supposed to meet last Thursday. Ryan and I texted each other first thing in the morning last Thursday. They were supposed to meet. And then the information that I got out of that was nothing.
Yeah, it was a hi, how you doing? You guys still play?
There was optimism in the original article that they were going to have an agreed upon settlement by the time training camp was supposed to have started, so we'd still be a little bit late. But then I heard nothing after that. So I sincerely doubt that's going to happen. And for those of you who love baseball like Ryan and I do, we will be watching zero baseball in March or April, and that's where I'm sitting on that.
Probably May.
Oh, I know. It's just terrible, especially
baseball owners have been the worst for years. I mean, Christ, free agency didn't start till baseball was 106 years old. So
yeah.
It's never going to end. This is probably going to be the worst lockout in terms of collective bargaining agreement negotiations in MLB history. This one's supposed to be a big one just because there's a lot of big changes that both sides want and that neither side's really going to agree to.
We could potentially not have a season this year.
It wouldn't. It would surprise me a little bit more than not right now. But if you ask me this question and we're still in the same spot in March and April, it would surprise me a lot less.
Yeah. So the only other thing we got to talk about is, and I actually only texted you about this once. You said you liked the idea, so we're going to just roll it out here. So for those of you who like to gamble a little bit on, betting and Super Bowls and stuff, BSing Sports has decided to host a block pool. For those of you who don't know what it is, ask your friends, Google it. It's 100 squares. We're thinking, what do you think, 5 or 10?
Let's go 5.
$5 a square. We're hoping to fill it up pretty quick. If you're interested, please email both of us or one of us.
Our emails are footers, Ryan at bsingsports.com and Bill at bsingsports.
Yeah, they're literally on the screen right now. They say Bill at bsingsports and Ryan at bsingsports. Please email us if you're in. If you tell me in the comment section right now, you are not going to help yourself. Thank you, Allie Brandt, for throwing mine up there. We want to throw Ryan's up there for us too, darling.
Yeah, it's okay. Save the best for last.
Thank you very much. But yeah, so again, block pool, 100 blocks. We're probably we'll get back to you guys as quickly as possible. Those of you who I have shirts, they've been done. I just haven't mailed them out yet. Again, very busy. And we'll go from there. Ryan, any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, let's get ready for another great weekend of football. Hopefully we see some closer games, some more competitive games, and naturally we should as we get into the second round of the playoffs. Super Bowl prediction right now. What two teams are playing?
I've got the Bills and Packers. Right now, Bills and Packers.
I've got the Rams and Chiefs.
See, that's the one team I don't want to see make it because they've been there 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see new fresh blood there too, but truthfully, if we think the Bengals are going to upset the Titans, I think the Titans are a better matchup for the Chiefs than the Bengals are. So if the Chiefs come out of that game against Buffalo and the Bills do upset the Titans, I don't see the Bengals going into Arrowhead and beating the Chiefs.
And I agree with you. And as you already said, you took the Chiefs here in this game. But no, I just if we're talking like straight up, I congratulations to Big Red, winning a Super Bowl, going to 3. But I just
is Andy Reid the best coach of all time?
You really have to
current coach. You obviously only really being rivaled by Bill Belichick. But with everything that's unfolded in New England, Tom Brady leaving, them getting bounced in the first round.
I was just about to say, so with everything going on and Tom Brady not being in there and Belichick having a difficult time winning, you have to really sit down and think about the teams that Andy Reid has brought to NFC championship games and now Super Bowls and competed year in and year out. He had 3 losing seasons in 14 years in Philadelphia. One of them was his rookie year when they knew they were going to be losing. You really have to take a long look at that and say, yeah, Andy Reid might be the best coach in football right now.
That's another good point that Timothy Hawkins makes is his coaching tree is outstanding. Granted, there have been some great assistants under Bill Belichick that have gone on to be successful, particularly in college. However, Andy Reid's NFL coaching tree is unbelievable. I kind of wish Jim Johnson were alive for a few more years in Philadelphia. I think they would have won a Super Bowl over there. That was so incredible to watch, growing up as a kid. Always had great defensive schemes, always had made good defensive players look great and average ones look good. So
Lito Shepherd, we're looking at you.
Yeah, no kidding. 102-yard interception return against the Cowboys.
Tony Romo, specifically.
Yep. Sheldon Brown. Sheldon Brown was not a good cornerback when he left Philadelphia and went to Cleveland.
True. Yeah, that's right. Also,
Michael Lewis was a Pro Bowler one year. Yeah. But yeah, so block pool. That's all I got. I don't have any closing thoughts. Again, I'm running on very exhausted fuel tank here, so I'm glad I got in and got an hour show in. Yeah, I know, that's incredible. Congrats, man. Thank you for squeezing it in tonight. I know you want to do it tomorrow, but appreciate it.
Nah, man, I told you the podcast here, and just so everybody else is aware that no matter what's going on in my life, I love doing the podcast. I love talking sports, so it's like a relief to be in this room here right now.
And he really loves seeing my face. He's not going to tell you guys.
We might have a special broadcast for you on Super Bowl Sunday. We're not entirely sure yet. I'm working on something. I'll let you know. Ryan hasn't even heard about it yet, but I'm working on it, and I'll see what I can do. But anyway, have a great night from BSing Sports. Have a good weekend of football.
And go Birds.
And always go Birds.